All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. I just want to say thanks for taking the time to meet with us today. I know there's been lots of great information shared over email and in our Facebook group. So it's just been really nice to see all the stuff that you guys are creating, the videos and the social media posts, and all the efforts that you've been put into recruiting, whether it's virtually or in person. I'm just so impressed with how Career Tech pivots and creates new opportunities that, John and I were just saying, some of the things that we're doing now will probably maintain even after the pandemic, because it's opened up opportunities for parents to participate in things. So, we started a series of info sessions. We can just log on with our recruitment coordinator for an hour, and she has a little presentation. You can ask questions. So for our newly accepted families, we're going to offer that with our counseling department. We're going to start info sessions with our counseling department as an incoming family. What do you want to know about credits and C-tags and articulation agreements and all of those things? So thinking creatively has been really good for us. So today we are going to talk about a handful of things. I want to talk to this group about how we continue to communicate, that we have a couple of options, and I'm glad Christine's here because she can explain one of them. And then she's also going to mention some awards that we can nominate our coworkers for. And then we have 3 people who are going to talk to us about how they market adult ed. And I'm really excited to hear from them, because this is one area where I really struggle to sort of get my hands wrapped around being able to anticipate and plan for and create campaigns for. So first, I just want to do a quick wellness check. How is everybody doing with the craziness of COVID, with virtual, with trying to get some in-person things going? Anybody want to tell us how you're doing? Yay or nay, good or bad? Good, I see some thumbs up. I can tell you, my husband and I were just saying the other night that we feel like up until this point, we've been running on 100% adrenaline. It's been like crisis mode for almost a year. And now that vaccines are coming out, we're just more tired than we've ever been. So it's a happy tired, but it's ready to be done tired. So, all right. Anybody else wanna? We're good, we're hanging on, taking it day by day. Okay, I see nods and smiles. All right, so Christine has, if you don't know Christine, tell me if I say this wrong. She's the executive director of the Ohio Career Technical Education Association. So we're honored to have her here with us today. And there are 2 things that she's involved in. One is we have some options for how this group continues to communicate. We've done emails, and now that I've figured out that if I blind carbon copy people, you can't reply to all. You guys are all able to reply all and talk to each other, which is great. We have a Facebook group that about 45 of us have gotten on, which is also great. But there's a little disconnect there. So not everything that's posted on the Facebook group is going to be seen by everyone who's emailing. And not everybody likes to have their email bogged down with email messages. So I wanted to get your feedback about that. What do people prefer? But then Christine has a third option. And Christine, if you don't mind explaining what that third option is, I would appreciate your expertise.
Sure. Well, thank you again for inviting me, Alicia, and thank you for convening this group. There is so much, especially in the past year, to talk about, and I've been included on a lot of those emails, so I see all the great things that all of you are doing. So thanks to each and every one of you for being so willing to share with each other. And like I said, Alicia, thanks for convening everybody. So I have been on those emails, and it is great information. Gosh, I love seeing the videos. I love seeing what you're doing with your virtual open houses and student recruitment. I learned a whole lot. But then, and this is just, what I want to share with you, because me personally, I'm like, oh yeah, that video, I want to see it again, and maybe it's next month. Where is that? And I go back through my email and I have to hunt for it. And then, everybody is replying. And so I have a hard time finding those kinds of things. So what I wanted to throw out to the group, and just to see if you're interested, is we have, through the Ohio ACTE website, the ability to do a discussion forum. So for instance, when someone shared that video, they could have done it through the discussion forum, and then it would always be there under that topic. So the topic might be, hey, videos to share. So you'd have one place to go back to, and maybe you guys are way more organized with your email than I am. And if that's the case, then I'm happy for you, but I am not. So it would be one web page where you could go on and say, oh, there's that video, or there's that topic. Or you wouldn't be getting all the replies, or the reply to all, like Alicia mentioned, when people are replying. And then the other cool thing about the functionality is you can set it up. Once you go on the discussion forum, Alicia might say, you know what, I want to see every single post as soon as someone posts it. So she can set that up to be immediate. John might say, you know what, if I just get a summary once a day, that's good. I can just see that once a day. And someone else might say, once a week. I think that those are the three different things. But the point is, or you can say, you know what, I don't need to be notified. I'll go on and check it when I want to. So, what that would do for me is to say, oh yeah, that video, I can just go back here and look in the discussion forum, or someone can set up a topic. So, and we've tried them with other groups before, and it really depends on, how communicative the group is and what you have to talk about. So, some have been successful, some haven't, but I just wanted to throw that out there. The other thing is then when I at Ohio ACTE get people who are interested in your group or being part of this, because as you know, at some schools, especially our comprehensive and compacts, the person doing the marketing is maybe the CTE director and not necessarily have your title, so they wouldn't have known to join this group. And that's the other thing I can do is say, hey, put it out there to say anybody who's interested in seeing what our communicators are doing and what's going on in PR, join this discussion forum. So just wanted to throw that out there, and you guys can discuss it just to see if it's something that might be beneficial. And if you just want to try it, it's not difficult to set up. So if you say to me, okay, we'll give it a try, and you decide you don't like it, you don't need to feel bad. It's pretty easy and not too time consuming to set up. So I'll let you guys discuss that, and Alicia, I've got limited time. So do you want me to use this time then to talk about the awards?
Yeah, and then we can talk about the communication stuff later. I can tell you that I get that. I have a discussion forum like that with NSRF, the National School Public Relations Association. Every Monday morning, I get one email with kind of, here are the top 3 discussions that are going on, and if any of them look interesting to me, then I click on it and log in, and I can see the whole conversation about it. So there are benefits and drawbacks that we can talk about later, and then Christine, I can get back to you on what the kind of consensus is.
Sure, thanks. So thanks for considering that. And then the other thing, I responded to one of the emails, so I hope the reply all was still working, because we're currently taking nominations for our awards, for our educator awards. So I just think that this group is the best group, knowing that your PR and communications to really recognize folks at your schools who are deserving of one of the Ohio ACTE statewide recognition. So I think I sent you all the links in the nomination form. We've tried to make it really easy. I personally don't like, forms or long nominations where you have to get all kinds of information. We really just want to know, who's deserving of this award and why. And you can see all the different, I think there was an attachment, or right with the nomination form, there's a description. Some of them are pretty self-explanatory, teacher of the year, administrator of the year, but there's a couple of others that we award that are in that detailed document, or talks about the different awards. And I know Brian Wilfong is on. Hi, Brian. Brian has been serving on our annual conference committee. And before that, Kendra, I see Kendra's name. So hi, shout out to you too. And I just want to let everyone know that right now we are hoping, hi Kendra, Kendra serves on that committee too. We're hoping to do the conference in person. But as you all have been dealing with ambiguity, so are we. So that's been our goal, to get back and have the conference in person, which means we will award the award winners in person. And then also Brian and Kendra have talked about doing a strand for all of you, or making sure we have content covered that pertains to PR and communicators and what you all need to know about as well. And I always tell groups this, it's another great opportunity to put out content that you think administrators need to know. You know, what do administrators need to know about PR and communications or these virtual visits? Or even instructors and teachers, you know, what would you like teachers to know? So there's that opportunity as well.
Great.
So hopefully, you know, I've got both fingers crossed here, that we will be able to do an in-person conference. Part of the things, the challenges are, even if it's in person, whether it be capacity limits, you know, what'll be the health and safety standards and protocols. And of course, that is our number one priority, making sure that if we can do it, that we do it safely. So any, you know, I'm happy to take any questions or comments. I've got a few more minutes, but Brian and Kendra are your representatives on the annual conference committee, and I'm sure they would appreciate hearing your input as well.
And Christine, I apologize if you said this, but what's the deadlines for those nominations? When do we have to get those in?
I believe February 15th is what is on there. And I know that's just a couple weeks away, and I know it's busy. So it'll most likely be extended. So, you know, don't think of that as you know, all my deadlines this year have become so fluid, and I was never that kind of person, but so deadlines this past year have become suggestions. But I will definitely, you know, send out a, hey, last chance.
Great.
And so I'm thinking, you know, if you can't make February 15th, the very latest would be March 1st. Okay. So that gives you a couple extra weeks to think about those. But yeah, I'm sad to say that deadlines have become suggestions this past year, or soft. I was talking to a superintendent, and I said, that's really a soft deadline, and they hate that. they don't function in that world. So it is kind of a soft, fluid deadline, but I would say no later than March 1st. And I'll probably keep the February 15th up there, because as you all know, with deadlines, people work better when there is a deadline. So absolutely, we'll keep the February 15th, but just between us, we'll take them until March 1st.
Okay, thank you. I think that's great. It's a great way to honor our staff members and show them how much we appreciate them, and then to brag about our districts as well.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, Christine. I appreciate it. You're welcome to stay on. I know you have other meetings to get to. And I just want to ask this group whether, you know, do you have strong feelings about like kind of our 3 methods of communication? Not that we have to be locked into one, but the more we spread ourselves out, the harder it is, I think, to see everything. So if anybody has strong feelings one way or the other, I will give you the floor. You can give me a thumbs up, thumbs down. Do we want to try the discussion forum? Do you like sticking with email? I know I throw all of my Ohio ACTE emails into a folder, but I don't know that I always have the ability to go back and find what I need.
I belong to NSPRA too, and the forum that you just mentioned, it's a very efficient, nice way to not be bombarded with emails, but yet easily find the information later. I get I have the daily reminder right now, and I was thinking of switching it even to the weekly. So yeah, it's nice to have that option for whatever fits for you, but also kind of know where everything is. Plus, you know, maybe 2 months pass by and you never look at anything, and then all of a sudden you have a question about something, and then there's a searchable database as well. Yeah. So it becomes even more valuable.
Absolutely. And I'm seeing some people in the chat. It sounds like the consensus is to give the discussion forum a try. So Christine, if there's something you need from me, or if that's something that you guys set up, and then let us know how to log in. I think the only downside to it is just it's something you have to log into. You have to, you know, make an effort to go out and see that. But Like Kendra said, you can set your settings to get a daily or a weekly reminder. And I just love seeing kind of like, here are the trending topics in PR right now.
And I'm not sure, we use a little different technology, so I'm not sure all the functionality and if you can, you know, get the remind like, oh, here's some great new topics, but it has the basic functions. And so I'll set one up, and Alicia, I'll send you the link and you can send it out and people can try it.
That sounds great.
All right.
Alicia, it's Lori with Washington County Career Center. So, Christine, you said that it'll have where we can put videos and we can put PDFs of promotional materials and.
Yes, it's been a while since I've looked at all the functionality. I know you can upload files.
Okay.
So you'll be able to do that. I don't know about putting in the actual video, but you could put in a link.
I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah. So let me, once I get it out there and you all test it, you can let me know and I can say, no, it doesn't have that functionality or it does. But I think, you know, if you're like me, just getting in and using it and seeing what it can do is probably the best way to test it.
Great. Well, it sounds like we'll give that a test, and Christine, I'll look for that link from you. And then if you didn't see the email from Christine, I put the link to the nomination form in the chat as well. So it's kind of up at the top. So
thank you,
everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.
All right. So I am going to move on to talking about marketing adult education. And before people jump off, if you don't have anything to do with adult ed, I think there would be something here for everybody. Is it Brianna or Brianne? Because I'm seeing it spelled two different ways, and I'm going to butcher it.
Just Brianne.
Okay, so Brianne had mentioned a couple of things that I think apply to everything that we do, whether you're high school, adult ed, district, or whatever. So feel free to stay on. If you were planning ahead to jump off at this point, you're welcome to. But I just want to thank Brian and John and Brianne for putting themselves out there and telling us a little bit about what they do for adult ed. And at this point, Brian, if you don't mind going first, I'll hand it over to you, and you can tell us all the cool things you're doing for adult education.
Well, that's a pretty tall order, but how long do we each have?
We usually schedule these till about 2 o'clock. So if you want to take like 10 minutes or so.
Okay. And I apologize in advance. None of us talked to each other in terms of what we're doing, so we might be redundant. And so be it. If one of the other two who represent it jump in, if I say something that's on your agenda too, I kind of cut this down short and sweet. I don't think I'm going to share my screen. I might if we need to. But when it comes to adult ed, I'm the public relations and marketing coordinator at CTEC Licking County. And I oversee the high school adult ed and our satellite programs. So I think with adult ed, one of the problems, I shouldn't say a problem, one of the issues that I think a lot of folks face is that they don't market adult ed as part of the district. And I am very much against that. And I think that marketing for adult ed is much more successful when it is linked to the overall district. It makes adult ed feel less like a redheaded stepchild, so to speak. You know, in our districts, the high schools are the financial generators, right? I mean, they're who the community knows. That's a fact. And so the successful way to market is to acknowledge that. Yeah. If you're constantly trying to separate the two out, I think you're almost implying that adult ed is less than. And it's part of the educational pathway, whatever that might be, and it's a legitimate one. So when it comes to social media, one of the first things that we did here at CTEC when I came on board is we do not have, and some people will disagree with me on this, we do not have separate social media and websites for our adult ed. We have district social media, and it covers everything. The reason for that and why I think it's been pretty successful here is because, at least in Licking County, if we had separated social media feeds for our adult ed, they would have very few followers. But our high school, our social media has a pretty robust presence because our high school, which is why most people eventually join or follow our social media, is heavily featured. I kind of call it, giving them the dessert, but sneaking in their vegetables too. In a week, I will put up one adult ed or two adult ed posts or stories mixed in with all of the high school things. And so people who are not there for adult ed and are not interested in our adult ed are learning about it because I'm force feeding it to them in a manner that they aren't opposed to, because they're getting the content they really come to our social media for, if that makes sense. And so keeping everything district level and funneling it through that that aspect has been very good for our adult ed, and has created really a pipeline, a natural pipeline from the high school to some adult ed programming. We also do very robust customized training. And again, all of that, none of that's separated. It's all kind of combined. We are CTEC, we are a district, and the district has many facets to it, but we are a district first and foremost. And so I have found that to be pretty successful. I think a thing with social media marketing in general, and adult ed is not the exception to this rule, is that, I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV, and everyone who has a Facebook feed knows how to market on Facebook. And so they'll say, hey, my program has a start date. You should really post something about that. Well, why? That's not why people are on social media. They don't care about that. HVAC is starting in February, yawn, like that's not interesting. But the stories in adult ed are, I think, much more interesting even in some cases than they are in the high school, because those are non-traditional students. A lot of those individuals are past their early 20s in terms of age, and the audience really, really connects to those. And so through your accreditation, your adult ed should, depending on who your accreditor is, have to have start dates in place 2 years in advance. And so we create a marketing calendar based on start dates. And then when we're in the enrollment period for the next start date, which is obviously quite a few months ahead, I start sneaking in stories and posts that are about things related to that program, but aren't necessarily labeled as that program. It's not HVAC is starting in February. It's our HVAC program is working on the local Habitat for Humanity house. And, here, look at this is them demonstrating this skill or whatnot. That's interesting. It's also sneaking in the fact that HVAC is starting up in 3 months. I do a lot with a lot with billboards for adult ed. I don't know that there's really no way to measure the efficacy of billboards, but they do make it visible. And we've really done a concerted effort at CTEC to focus on just getting the brand out there. And a lot of our billboard advertising, our paid advertising, is adult ed specific. And we have found that to be pretty useful, mainly because OTCs, adult ed centers, have by and large really good statistics. Our graduation rates are good. Our credentialing rates are good. Our placement rates are good. Use those because by and large, and I'm not trying to insult anybody here, they're better than a lot of the local traditional higher ed. Your OTCs have higher graduation rates than your local community college. I'll almost bet on it. And so those stats mean something. And I really, we have found a lot of success in pushing that. Another thing that I think is pretty interesting with adult ed is how responsive it can be. When COVID hit, our adult ed center didn't close, ever. And classes were still offered. They had a remote and then in-person options depending on what they were working on at the time, but they never closed. And if you look at what a lot of our adult ed centers offer, they're the essential workforce. When COVID hit and people lost jobs, it wasn't HVAC technicians who were losing jobs. It wasn't diesel technicians. It wasn't truck drivers. It was people like us. It was white collar positions. And so we've really found a lot of success with, we train the essential workforce. It's not our graduates, adult ed graduates, who are unemployed right now, by and large. Healthcare, STNA, and LPNs and things like that, those people are working. Construction and multi-craft and maintenance, I mean, those jobs are there. Welding, power line, they didn't go away, they increased the demand. And so we've been very lucky in that we've been able to really focus campaigns around that. And so I guess that's a really convoluted way of saying if there's a way of creating a campaign that incorporates everything in adult ed, that's maybe not just program specific, that really bumped up our presence too. I saw a comment in the chat, but it popped down too quick for me. I think saying that you have, if I saw it correctly, multiple programs.
I'll get this for you. They have separate Facebook pages for adult programs, and they share some of their posts on their district page. So let's say like fire has its own Facebook page, and then they share that on the district page. What's your opinion on how effective that might be, and does it divide too much? She said they get a lot of views and shares that way.
I don't like that personally, just because of consistent messaging. We have it at CTEC, some tags and some consistent messages that we want out. I'm not opposed to those. The way we're set up here, I don't like it. Again, it just makes me, I get a little nervous of that. Not that I'm the person that controls all the content that goes on social media. I don't mean that, but messaging. Most people, if they're not paid to focus on messaging all day and think about it, don't think of that. Especially during COVID, we had, our staff get weekly reminders that are generated by me to send me success stories. You have to, they've got full-time jobs, so you have to kind of go after them and remind them and pop in and things like that. And doing that, having that kind of consistent messaging, I'm not sure that I see that you do the postings for them. In my role here, that's not, monitoring 3 or 4 of those would not be feasible. That's also a top down. When I took over, our district leadership wanted everything going through a funnel, the same strainer. And so that was the directive we got, and we made it work. Our numbers have gone up in our adult ed in the last 5 or 6 years since we've had marketing and adult ed positions. We have a pretty robust one here at CTEC. And I think that kind of consistent marketing to maybe some audiences that don't normally receive that marketing has helped. Also, adult ed right now, it's the time to capitalize, right? We're the flavor of the month. College has made itself irrelevant is not the right term, but it's certainly overpriced. And it is certainly, there are a lot of options for higher ed that maybe aren't practical in the real world. And technical training on both sides of the political aisle is being praised and touted. And it's kind of the one of the few unifying things, I think, in the current American political culture is the value of it. And so playing up to that, I think, is very valuable.
Brian, I have 2 quick questions, and I would love to hear the answer from John and Brianne when they present as well. But one is, when you say you have like a district social media, I kind of do the same thing. I always feel like with high school, I don't have to designate this as a high school post. This is a high school fire program. When I post about adult ed, I feel obligated to point out, like, this is for adults. This program is an adult ed program. Do you do that as well?
Yes, I'll say, like,
Okay.
check out, like when they're doing burns and whatnot, our adult fire program or EMT. No, I always designate that.
But do you do that at the high school side too? Do you say this is our high school fire program?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like I feel like there's an unjust there for the adult ed in our district, that I feel like I have to designate adult ed, but high school is just kind of a given.
I try to be consistent in that. I'm not always, but some of the programs are shared. We have medical assisting in registered medical assistant in the adult ed and in the high school side. Cosmetology, we have both. Yeah. So I think because we have a few shared programs, that's why I just started doing that. It wasn't a conscious decision on my part. And our adult ed posts do well when they're mixed in like that. They do surprisingly well.
And then my second question is, how do you get your student stories from your adult students? This is a group of people I have very little access to because they're here when I'm not here. I try to schedule time when I'm here for board meetings to get to know them, but they're a harder group to get to, and not everybody's comfortable sharing their story. So how do you go about it?
Well, I am in weekly contact with their instructors. And obviously I'm district, but I'm part of the adult ed staff. So I get all of those emails and things like that. And it's a constant reaching out to them. They get a weekly reminder from me. And then reminding them, like in our adult ed staff meetings, saying, hey, we did this post on, this young man who's an immigrant and came here and did IT, and it just blew up and went all over the place. And then that kind of triggers the stories. I've not had very many adult ed students who have been reluctant to share their stories. I think, and especially those who, as ironic as it seems, maybe come from dire circumstances or made a lot of poor choices when they were younger, are almost thrilled to say, I righted the ship.
Yeah.
So I've not experienced that. I've been very lucky, knock on wood. And I saw someone said a preference between digital and static. Our billboards are digital because we can change them pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like
And almost all of our billboard content is adult ed based. So people throughout the area that we market in have gotten very used to seeing those as adult ed advertisements.
Great. All right. Any other questions for Brian before I throw it over to John's next on my list? All right, John, tell us what you guys do for adult ed.
Oh, gosh.
Thank you, Brian, by the way. I really appreciate all that great information.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. And in fact, a big part of the reason I agreed to talk today, other than the fact that Alicia is so persuasive, is that, I'm hoping that I can talk about what we're doing and people will say, well, here's the way I'm doing it better. And so it was interesting, Brian, to hear because we're doing things a little bit differently than you are. And I took lots of notes. I appreciate it. And honestly,
John, can I just interrupt real quick? When I first started in this role, people said, oh, Brian, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. Facebook's dead, Twitter's where it's at, it's this, it's that, it's whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's all nonsense. Like it depends on district. For us, Facebook is where it's at. And the others don't perform nearly as well. And for other districts, Facebook is dead. So, play around with it. Right? Mm-hmm. It's different for all of us.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I appreciate that. And honestly, when I started working here at Great Oaks back in the early 1800s, we were sending catalogs out. 4 times a year, we'd send a catalog out. Now we serve 500,000 homes, and so we're sending 2 million catalogs out every year. And a lot of that had to do with the part-time classes that we offered. And I'm really interested to hear whether people are still doing part-time personal enrichment classes, if you've gotten out of that over the years. When I started here, we were offering 100 and plus each term, and we're down to 30 or so, and rarely fill all 30 of those classes. Conversely, our full-time and career certification classes have grown over the years, and we'll keep seeing that, I think. But we spend time advertising those, and we've tried a number of different things. We've kind of backed off of radio. We're a little bit lucky here in the Cincinnati area because the Cincinnati media market really covers most of our district, and so it's usually fairly cost effective if we're going to do mass media to do it in the area that we're at. Conversely, we've done billboards, Brian, and this is such a high traffic area that billboards are kind of cost prohibitive to be able to cover the area that we've got. So we've, over the years, kind of backed off billboards, except leading up to levy years, honestly. And fortunately, we passed a levy in 2018, so we won't be doing billboards for a little while. But the thing that we've gotten more and more into in the past couple of years is digital marketing, particularly Google AdWords. That's been very successful for us after some fits and starts. But the bulk of our adult ed advertising right now is Google AdWords. The key for us has been kind of building and maintaining and continually refining the program that we have. Tweaking keywords, looking at what's working, looking at and trying different sets of keywords, that sort of thing. So again, the bulk of what we do is Google AdWords, and we're seeing good results. The industry average, we're told, is 1 to 1.5% click-through rates on Google Ads, and we're seeing click-through rates of between 5 and 6% typically for our adult ad advertising. And we've branched out. We've started using that for some of our high school advertising as well, and we're seeing good results using our affiliate feeder schools, keywords tied to them for our high school advertising. But some of the other work that we're doing this year, we've started YouTube ads. It's something we're testing. We just started the ad this week, so I'm curious to see how it works. Our feeling, our theory is that more and more people are abandoning the personal enrichment classes and those kind of classes because of the availability of YouTube videos and other sources for that do-it-yourself, that kind of information. So we've created some inexpensive YouTube ads to be able to post on YouTube, and kind of tied into keywords that we're looking at. If we're doing a flower arranging class, we'll use keywords that tie to that. So as people are looking at those kinds of videos, our ads will come up. So I'll be interested to see how those work out. We also use paid Facebook advertising for our adult ad. Now we're one of those districts that has multiple Facebook sites, and honestly, our users on our Facebook adult side is about the same as our district site. So we've been successful with that over the years, and it's grown. But something that really shocked us, a couple of years ago, we tried just a small paid Facebook ad to promote, I believe it was a fire inspector class for our fire academy. It's a very specialized class. Only those who have their firefighter license would be interested, only people with certain career goals and certain experience. So it's a really limited audience, but we filled the class on the basis of $100 worth of Facebook advertising. So we're doing more and more of that with those kind of specialized, particularly the professional development and the advanced training classes on Facebook. So we see mixed results with those. Some classes we get a great response, we get great shares, great interaction on Facebook, and some we get less. But it's inexpensive enough. I'm sorry, what's that?
John, there's a question. Do you do all the Google ads yourself, or do you use an outside agency to kind of tweak them?
We started using it ourselves, and then we switched to an outside agency, and the cost, they charged us $500 to kind of tweak and refine what we have, and our ongoing cost is about 10% of what we spend on Google Ads. So for us, it's very worth it, especially the kinds of click rates that we're getting.
And I saw somebody asked about geofencing. I'm going to throw out an idea that I have not been able to get an adult ed director to do. But in our area, we have, Columbus Fire is not too far from us. They have a testing site where if you're training to be a firefighter, all of the hundreds of firefighters or prospective firefighters go to this one training facility to take a test on this one day. Mm-hmm. We know what day that is. We know what time it's going to take place. We could do a geofencing ad around that location at that time to market our fire program, and anyone who doesn't pass the test, which 60% of the people aren't going to pass it, to say, hey, do you need some additional fire training? Come on over to the Career Center. And suddenly, as long as they connect it to the Wi-Fi, it's going to show up on their phone. It's going to get into their IP address. It's going to show up on their computers. I've not been able to convince an adult ed director to do this. So if someone can do it and tell me how well it works, I would love to forever.
That's brilliant. I like that a lot. Okay. We've done, most of the ads we do are tied to zip codes or other location sources, whatever digital advertising we're doing. We've done some more direct geofencing, some really targeted geofencing. We tried promoting some of our traditionally male adult ed courses around local sports bars on days when there are big games. Didn't see a lot of response to it, but I thought it was interesting to try that. And
Yeah.
it was worth trying a couple of times, and maybe we just didn't get the right games or the right ad, or people just weren't looking at their phones during the games. But at any rate, so we've tried some geofencing that way. And Brian, you made a great point about being one district, and I assume people do this routinely. We tend to cross promote. You know, we'll publish information about our high school programs in our adult catalog, and adult programs in our high school catalog, and every time we have an open house, every time we do something else, and I'm sure everybody does that too. You know, you take the opportunity to put a table out for adult ed when you're doing a high school open house, that sort of thing. We've been lucky that we've had some good personal stories here that have given us some attention. Our last police academy had a 57-year-old woman who was a former P&G executive who retired, and she had always wanted to be a police officer, and she'd served in the military when she was young, and so she joined the academy at 57, and frankly ran rings around some of our younger cadets. And it was a great story. The upshot, the kicker on it was that she's a really interesting person who didn't interview very well. And one of our local TV stations decided they were going to interview her live. And it was unfortunately one of the more painful live interviews I've ever seen. Just because, yeah, and as you know, some people are very good at that and some people are not. And this one just didn't work out. But her story was a good one, and it got our police academy some great attention. So we've been fortunate in having those kind of unique stories. And Brian, you're right. Some of the folks who are in our adult classes, they've got backgrounds, they've got stories, they've got plans that our high school students don't have. So sometimes, those stories kind of write themselves. But
and John, how do you get those stories? Are you doing something similar to Brian? You're just constantly reminding them and in communication?
Yeah, more or less. My office isn't in the same building as our adult ed, but so I don't have kind of the day-to-day contact with them that I'd like to have. But fortunately, the instructors we have are great, and they're usually pretty good about letting me know what's going on. This woman I just spoke about, unfortunately, I didn't hear about till graduation day, so I didn't get a chance to follow her through the academy at all. But in most cases, yeah, the instructors are pretty good about sharing what they have. They seem to be pretty savvy about that.
Good.
Yeah. Lots more going on here, but I know time is limited, and I sure appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing your information. Does anybody have questions for John? I saw some things come up in the chat, but I think we've addressed some of those about geofencing.
Yeah. Great.
All right. Well, thank you, John. I love hearing how everyone does this a little bit differently, and I know Brian has even a different kind of perspective on things. And I don't want to tee you up the wrong way, but she shared with me sort of a marketing plan she had put together. And I just thought it was so beautifully done with the focus on storytelling and bringing out these emotions, and kind of, along the same line that Brian and John said, that we're not just posting, hey, this class is starting on this date. Why, of course you would want to sign up. Why don't you want to sign up? So Brian, if you want to take it away, I will hand it over to you.
Okay, so this is actually my first time being in this meeting, and I'm talking, so if I'm a little nervous, that's why.
We're all friends.
Yeah. So I actually started at the Wayne County Career Center last January, so I've only been here for about a year. I just came up on my 1 year, but obviously, like a couple months into starting was when COVID happened. So the first couple months was just trying to keep my head above the water, but So my background, I actually worked at a marketing agency for about 1.5 years, and then decided that I just didn't like being so spread thin, and I wanted to focus all of my efforts on one project and kind of go from there. So I work totally with adult ed. That's pretty much it. However, I think Heather might still be here. She is the high school like counterpart of me for the Wayne County Career Center. So her and I work together a lot. We share the same office. So we do a lot together, but I do adult ed and she does high school. So that's just a little bit of a background. But so the last couple months or so, like Alicia had mentioned, I've been doing a lot of focusing on kind of what my digital marketing experience taught me, which is to kind of start like at the base level and let's figure out, you know, who our customers are and what they might be feeling and what some of their like driving forces might be, and kind of taking a step back a little bit. Did you want me to share the marketing plan with everybody?
If it helps for the visual, otherwise you're welcome just to talk about it, whatever you want. I can give you sharing permissions if you don't have it.
I just didn't know if you wanted me to.
It's totally up to you. The floor is yours.
Okay, I mean, I have it open, so I guess that would be, I can also send it to everybody if you guys want to take a look at it later. But I can share. Oh, maybe not.
You have sharing permissions.
Host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Okay, hold on. You keep talking.
Okay.
Okay.
So like I was saying, I've kind of taken a step back. So I actually built a marketing plan, and how I did this was I met with some of our higher ups for adult and then also for high school. And we did what we called at the marketing agency I worked for like a kickstart meeting where we really dove in and tried to identify who our heroes are. I'm sure some of you guys have heard of like the hero and guide idea with marketing. So we really tried to figure out, you know, who those people are, and then collectively, adult and high school, how we want to promote ourselves and brand ourselves. And then I was able to create a marketing plan to do that.
Give that a try.
Here we go.
There we go.
So this is it, the beginning of it at least, but I was just going to show you some of this. So this is some of our heroes. And so we kind of broke it up into 3 different high schoolers. And then we also talked about some of their parents and what that might look like. But we're talking about adult ed today, so I'll scroll down. So this was our adult ed heroes. And, you know, every career center, even in Ohio, is going to be different, and you're going to have different people. One that we have that might be a little bit different is the bottom. We have apprenticeships, which are a pretty big part of our adult ed programs. But we just kind of broke it up and talked about what their different needs and frustrations are and stuff like that. And then talk a little bit about, you know, how we want to brand ourselves overall, and then talking about the marketing wheel and how that reflects with us. And then this is kind of an example of how that looks. So these are Facebook posts. Some of them I think I've like boosted or put some money behind. And that's worked really well for us. As you can see, we actually have 3 different Facebook pages. So there's the adult ed, the high school, and then we have a collective just career center. And then both Heather and I will like share our content onto that one. So we kind of have separate, and then we kind of come together. And then Heather and I also share each other's content on each other's pages at times when it makes sense. So that's that. And that's some of our like plans and stuff. I'll stop sharing. 1 second. So that's a big part of what we're doing and what I see like at least the next 6 months of planning for us looking like. And that's going to turn into, we actually did a training with all of our staff about a month ago where I went through the marketing plan in detail and just tried to explain to everybody so that we're like, all of us are all on the same page about, you know, what kind of message we want to send out to people. And I think that was really helpful because then, you know, the people who are answering the phones and the people who are meeting with the students, and we're all on the same page. We all know what we need to be saying and doing and how our students might be feeling and stuff like that. Sorry, I had some notes, so that's what I'm looking at. So then we did some training, and then from that, I'm doing like some one-on-one meetings with like the clusters of staff, where it makes sense, where we can kind of take a deep dive into what they're doing and how we can maybe clean it up or make it look better, or just help the students to feel better. Yeah, I'll share it with you.
Awesome.
Let me see. We also, on the, like the other two had mentioned, we're doing a lot of the like testimonial things, which kind of goes into that marketing plan that I was showing you. So that's, you know, just trying to get some of those like authentic stories, and we get them from our staff also, which have gone over really well. I think it helps some like potential students feel like they're getting to know the instructors before they even come here. Are there questions? I see there's like chats popping up. I don't know.
So a few people are saying that they're looking at how you can get some of your own seniors to then go into adult ed programs. I think that's what I'm seeing. And some people have scholarships. Some people have like reduced pricing. If your own high school students then go on to take an adult ed course. We've had that a couple of times, but we don't have an incentive for it. I think it's a really great idea.
Yeah, we actually do that, and we call it our STAR scholarship. So that's like a part of our logo is a star. And so it's called the STAR scholarship. And we actually get a lot of like high school students who maybe did like animal science, and then they decide I want to do practical nursing or something like that. And then they're given a scholarship to do that. And we always like get stories about that and send it to the newspapers and stuff like that. That was another thing I was going to talk about. Obviously, my background's in digital marketing. So when I came on board, I was like, digital marketing, and everybody else was like, we've been doing only print forever. So that's been awesome to kind of start to move more towards digital. And not that I see us ever just like stop, like not doing print, but it has definitely, we've started to make that change. And it's much cheaper to do digital. For us at least.
Yeah. And I know I've heard some of this said different ways, you know, the idea of don't sell a mattress, sell a good night's sleep, you know, sell the experience, sell the lifestyle. But even just after I got your email, Brianne, that this is the kind of thing you do, I needed to hear it again. And it was kind of like a renewed effort for me to go chase after those stories. So it's just a really nice reminder every once in a while. I get hammered with the, hey, we have a class coming up in 2 weeks. Can you just post the date? Oh, nobody wants to know that your date's coming up. They want to know what they're going to get out of it. There was a whole email chain of me trying to ask one of our fire instructors, who's the audience? What are they going to get out of it? What's the purpose? And it's kind of like pulling teeth sometimes when they feel like it should just be known, and we know that we have to explain it. So Brianna, I appreciate you speaking up and lighting that fire under me just a couple weeks ago.
Well, I think it was almost easier for me because, like I said, I'm fairly new. And so I was able to kind of use the, I don't know anything, inform me. So it kind of worked out in that way.
That's great. Does anybody have any questions for Brianne? Or we have a couple minutes left, anything else that you're just sitting and going, oh my gosh, I do this and it works so well. I wish everybody knew that I did this. This is a great place to share those. And if you have great ideas, don't keep them to yourself. Make sure we all know what works so we can steal your ideas. I see a lot of people are doing discounts.
I just saw John mention that discount. John, tell me more. That's a great idea. That's not something we do. What's that about?
Well, we, for our own graduates, our own students, we offer, if they sign up for class the year after they graduate, it's a 10% discount. And actually, if they come back to us after a year, it's a 5% discount. Because we'll get students who, you know, they took auto refinishing, but they really want to be an auto mechanic. So they want to come back and do the auto mechanics class. Or as you mentioned, Brianne, somebody might switch careers altogether, switch paths altogether. The theory is that these are people who know us, they like us, they understand us. And we don't get a ton. We get half a dozen, 8 to 10 maybe a year, but that's 8 to 10 students that might have gone to one of the other schools or might have gone to a for-profit school that comes to us instead. We tell the students about it. while they're in class, but we also put information about it in the career passport that they get when they leave us, so that they've got it in front of them.
I see Melissa said that putting phone numbers and dates, oh, it's moving, negatively impacts a Facebook post or a Facebook ad. That's not something I know anything about. So Melissa, if you're still on here, do you have anything?
Yeah, so I know Facebook will, obviously the algorithm understands that it's an ad. And so, and they will always rank an ad lower than, you know, a good feel good story. Facebook knows what people like and they know what they don't like. So anytime, you know, data has kind of proven that anytime you put a phone number or date, or that Facebook can clearly tell it's an ad, it will always impact your organic traffic majorly. So I've just kind of given the rule, and people, of course, the same as you, when you said it, you're like, they always want me to put start dates. I'm like, people, first of all, they already know that we have adult ed. They don't care about start dates, but it's hard to tell, you know, how do people understand? But now I'm just like, nope, you're not affecting my organic traffic that way. And then, you know, it will just, you know, the less people that like each post you have, it all affects it. So I talk to them a lot about organic growth and affecting our Facebook negatively. And they don't love to hear it, but they're getting used to it at this point. So
Good.
just a thought, but it does indeed negatively affect where it goes. So
Interesting. And then Krista asked, is anyone still mailing out catalogs? And I can tell you, we absolutely cannot afford to mail catalogs. Is anybody doing it, and is it successful? You're doing it, Fran?
I was actually going to bring this up, but so we used to mail them out. Like last year we did, and our the number that we mailed out was like 66,000. But we actually are moving towards posting the catalog digitally and then sending out postcards instead, which is a lot cheaper. And then we'll send out those postcards maybe like 3 times a year when our start dates are coming up. And then just referring them to that online catalog so that we're not sending out the whole catalog. But they can find it pretty easily.
John, did you start to say?
Yeah, we send out, we actually split it into 2. We used to send one catalog that had both full-time and personal enrichment classes, but the start dates for those are different and the market is different. So so we split those. We send a full-time and a part-time catalog out each year. The thing that we have done is we've cut way back on the households that we do. Traditionally, our students come from about 10 miles, within 10 miles of the campus that they're going to. And so rather than send them out to our entire district, we just focus on those households that are within 10 miles of the campuses. And it cut it down to about 2/3. You know, we were sending about 2/3 less catalogs than we were in the past.
And John, I know you mentioned enrichment classes. The one success I have had with my adult ed directors is convincing them that in our county, and it's different for everybody, in our county, there's not that many people who need to make that kind of big life change of becoming a police officer, becoming a firefighter. So we have created like date night cooking classes. And around Valentine's Day, we have how to make chocolates and candies. And right before Thanksgiving, we did a how to make a Thanksgiving meal. And so those have become really popular. Those kind of experience classes, like you said, you can watch a YouTube video, but that doesn't make a good date night with your spouse or I've had parents bring their kids to some of these classes where then you eat what you cook. It's kind of like a sur la table style thing with our chef here. So that has been really fun, and it's been fun to market too.
That's very cool. How do you market those? I'm sure it's tough to spend very much money trying to market those.
Our adult ed advertising budget is $3,000 for the whole year. And yes, Melissa, that is the face I make too. Yeah. So you appreciate where I come from. Mostly Facebook ads. It's all social media and boosting Facebook posts, and that's about it. Word of mouth, everything we can do. So in partnerships with our local employers and things like that. But yeah, that $3,000 does not go far. That's print material. That's print. Anything you want to print that's printed materials. Everything. It goes quick. We have just a couple, like 1 minute left before most of you were planning on this meeting ending. So I just want to mention we probably have time for maybe 2 more meetings this school year, and a couple of the topics you told me you wanted to cover. Somebody said they're going to go. Melissa's going to go kiss her treasurer right now. 2 of the topics that had come up that we haven't covered yet are like building momentum for the future, and as part of that kind of that long-term planning and reaching maybe the younger elementary school students, how we do that. And then the other one was building our own value, framing our own value with leadership at our school districts and our superintendents. Are both of those topics still things that you would like to tackle? And I see nods, thumbs up. Okay, so, and you know what that means though, I'm going to be reaching out to you to find out who feels confident in those areas. And then you will be the next up to present. So 2 to 3 people tends to work well to fill this hour, gives us a couple of different perspectives. So thank you, Teresa, for being here. She has to jump off. So I will reach out, and I guess what I'll do is whatever bubbles up first with people to fill that time is what topic we'll cover next. So look for something over the next couple months for our next meeting, and look for that link to start the discussion forum from Christine. And then Brianne is going to share her awesome marketing guide. And I wish I could pet your dog. He looks so adorable. But yeah, she'll share her marketing guide with us, and it's just really nice. Take a look at that, and it will inspire you as well to just go out and get some fresh stories.
Alicia, can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
Of everyone? So like the catalog thing, we stopped mailing out the catalog years ago too, but we do like one email every year, or not email, postcard mailing. And a couple of years ago, we thought, well, we'll target it and we'll just send it to certain demographic groups, and it bombed for us.
Really?
And so we've just been doing blanket mailings now. Has anyone had success with, like when we target digitally, very successful, but targeting with like print mailings has not succeeded for us. Has anyone had a good result of that? And I don't know if it's because mailing lists aren't quite as accurate as targeting, because they can't draw the information, you know, as succinctly as they can from stalking people online, or what, but when we do targeted direct mail, they do not do well.
We did. I'm at Warren County Career Center, but when I first got here, we blanket mailed, you know, thousands and thousands to every zip code in our area. And then we paid close attention to what zip codes actually do come here. So we stayed within a little bit more finite. We actually bought a mailing list though, with our targeted, you know, like, you know, what families and that kind of thing. And we did personally find more success that way. And actually I was kind of like, oh, do we even need a catalog? But because when I got here, I'm sure everybody has that mindset. Everybody's experience. They were like, oh, they keep our catalog for a year. I'm like, no, they don't. So when we pared it down really low, they were kind of like, oh gosh. But I'm like, look what we can do with this money. But it was for us successful. And I was surprised. We actually do get a bump when we send a catalog. We do get an increase in calls, surprisingly.
What's the target you focus on? Like, what are some of the...
So we did lower income. So we did like a household income of less than 50,000, because for us, it's like, you know, it's just, it seems to be someone that's not, you know, the families that aren't, you know, making as much money. So number one was 10 miles or less from here. And number two was $50,000 or less general household income. And then we did, you know, people with young families, single moms. But I said, like I said, some people can't necessarily afford to buy a mailing list, but we got to buy one that was pretty specific. So for us, it was worth it to pay for the mailing list because we were mailing out less. So
Gotcha.
If that's an option, you know, that was successful for us.
Hey, Brian, I'll add in too that we stopped doing the catalogs 2 years ago, and that's because our superintendent put a stop to it. But prior to that, we were doing kind of what Melissa was saying, and we were doing it to a lower income. We were following zip codes along the Ohio River because we do a lot of industrial training for the plants. And when the catalog would go out, within a couple days, our phones would start ringing off the hook.
Okay.
So it was definitely successful for us, but yeah, it's costly with the print of the catalog and then to mail the catalog.
We also did, just like that is exactly how ours is. And we did we picked a phone number. You know, we did a dedicated line. So we knew that was the only place that phone number was. And, you know, it's pretty simple, tried and true, but it makes sense. And that way we knew that that's where it was really coming from. So, and we've done that sometimes with email addresses here too, on some direct mail and some digital pay-per-click ads. We've been putting a specific email address, and that's been really helpful for me to know where it's genuinely coming from, because it's so hard with digital. So just
good, thank you.
We learned that our adult ed secretary's phone number spells 740-201-DACC. That was so much fun to be able to put it. We didn't even have to like make it happen. It just, I don't know who discovered it. Someone was typing it out. Wait a minute, it spells DACC. Do you all do info sessions, or how do people get the initial information about courses after expressing interest? I can tell you our secretary follows up with students. I don't know if anybody else has a more streamlined approach, especially if you offer more adult ed classes than we do.
When they call us and we know where they're interested, like the receptionist quizzes them in essence if they don't come in with this is what I was looking for, and then our coordinators are their point of contact from that point on.
Mm-hmm.
So we put them right in the horse's mouth, and then they follow up continually.
Okay.
We do twice monthly information sessions, and they've been very successful. We finally convinced them not to do open houses anymore because, Melissa, you know, they were terrible. But the information sessions work very well. People sign up. We get, I don't know, 10 to 12 people twice a month. They come in, they talk to the coordinator, they learn about financial aid, they go see the lab. It's been quite successful so far.
Do you make those specific to different programs, or is it just open to anyone interested in like any program, and you have all, how do you structure that?
It's only separate for our medical programs because they're in a different building, but all the programs on the main campus, it's just sign up. They tell you which program they're interested in,
Mm-hmm.
but they come in and they hear a presentation from financial aid and all of that too.
I love that.
Yeah, it's worked well.
We do the same thing, except our practical nursing, like LPN program, is separate, but everything else is all lumped together.
And Peg, are you doing those virtually right now?
No, they're doing them in person.
Okay.
Everybody has to wear a mask. They keep them distanced in the room, but they do them in person.
You know, Peg, what you just said reminded me about the information sessions. One thing, one of our financial aid person at Adult Ed, it was totally her idea, came up with a couple of years ago, is we do once a quarter financial aid evenings, and we market them to the local high schools, to the community, and they are not specific to CTEC. It's you come in and we will help you with financial aid for applying to Harvard. We don't care. If you are a senior or junior in high school and you need financial aid assistance, we have a dedicated session for you, and it's almost a community service, but obviously it pays dividends for us too. And it's been a really cool community tool.
Nice.
Yeah, that is good.
I'll chime in real quick for one last tidbit. So I work specifically on the high school side, but something that we did this year that I think would be a useful tool for the adult ed side is we always have an open house, and this year it was a virtual open house. And instead of recording the sessions for folks that missed it or learned about it after the fact, I had each instructor pre-record an information session. They used their same slideshow. They used a recording tool. You can do it on Zoom, Screencastify, etc. If there were multiple presenters, we stitched them together. But it's been so helpful, and I think we'll continue to do it moving forward as things, still they go back to normal and we have our on-campus visits. But being able to, as soon as a family calls, send them that first email back with the link to that video that are all housed on a YouTube playlist, and then connect them with the instructor. A lot of their initial questions are answered, their interest is piqued. But I found that was once our instructors got comfortable with the fact of recording themselves talk, it worked really well.
I'm getting tips from my own people. Okay, thank you, Mary. That is, no, that's a really good idea to steal those, some of those things we're doing from the high school over to adult ed. I'm gonna rope you into helping me with that too. So it's a little after 2. I know a lot of people have already left the meeting. Some people whose names we only see may or may not still be with us. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the meeting, but look for all of that great stuff to come as a follow-up. Thanks again to John and Brianne and Brian for sharing all of your expertise. And then, remember that these meetings are successful because all of you are sharing your areas of strength. So these next upcoming meetings, I'll be relying on you to let me know what you feel confident about, so we can put you up front and share with us what you know. Oh, so Melissa was asking, do they record themselves? Yeah, so Mary said that they recorded their own video, and we would sometimes put like an intro on it, and we just put them up on YouTube. So she just sent the link. There's a YouTube link there if you want it. I'll email that out too, so that people who didn't stay on this long have it. And Brianne said she created a website specifically for their open house, and there's a link for that too. It benefited both high school and adults. All right. Well, happy Thursday, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of the week and a great weekend. It's going to get freezing cold, so be warm out there. And I will see everybody soon. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, Alicia. Appreciate it.
Sure. Bye.